There are plenty of reports in the Israeli media. There's a report in Haaretz only a couple of days ago from doctors at an Israeli field hospital for detained Gazans. We are all complicit in breaking the law. 2 prisoners had their legs amputated due to handcuff injuries, says a doctor at an Israeli prison facility who described deplorable conditions and violations of medical ethics and the law in a letter to ministers. And it's just this week, 2 prisoners had their legs amputated. He said inmates are fed through straws, defecate in diapers, are held in constant restraints which violate medical ethics and the law. Well, if that's the case, if these reports are appearing in the Israeli press and international lawyers are also up in arms about what is happening in Israel, what about our position? Well, our position is flagged up by none other than the former Home Secretary. So, as Netanyahu reduces the number of troops but doesn't withdraw from Gaza, the shadow of Israel and its impact on British politics is looming large, larger indeed, frankly, than the effect of the coming eclipse. And Suella Braverman's trip on 4-day trip to Israel as a sort of pseudo-diplomat is astonishing. She went to Israel on her own back. She explained on Twitter that she'd been holding talks with Israeli military and political figures. Her thoughts and prayers were for the people, for the charity workers killed in the terrible mistake. She talks about them all being brave men who put themselves in harm's way. I think one of them was a woman. And Israel did not intend, she says, or intend to injure or to kill these people. And she points out that Israelis had rightly apologized. Would that it was so easy. She said that she'd been shown around. She'd been to the kibbutz Kfar Aza. She'd been to the Nova Music Dance Festival site. She'd spoken to people on the ground. Israel was fulfilling the rules of law, the rules of war, she said, and they were keen to keep those rules. She had seen the proof. She gave quite a lengthy interview to the Jewish Chronicle, and she's also given an interview to Radio 4. Let's listen to the Radio 4 interview.
The suggestion itself is absurd and frankly an insult to Israel, who's been going above and beyond the necessary requirements to ensure that civilian casualties are limited, to ensure that aid is received onto the Gaza Strip and distributed. I've seen evidence myself in terms of very up-to-date photographic evidence of plentiful food packages and trucks of food, water and medicines getting to the people of Gaza.
The problem here is not so much the fact that this is some sort of wandering, aberrant diplomat, but the fact that this is that we're being offered a choice between a Labour Party which can't seem to quite bring itself to defy the anti-Semitism of the past or to clarify its position clearly. And there was a meeting only a couple of days ago where Lord Mandelson was furious to be asked why he hasn't, or why the Labour Party hasn't clarified its position about Jeremy Corbyn and its position about anti-Semitism. and he walked out of the meeting. I don't think striding off is the answer, but equally I don't think there's a clear understanding in the Labour Party always that there's a distinction to be made between being anti-Semitic, being anti-Zionist, and being anti-Netanyahu. Two of those are unacceptable, and that line is crossed so easily. In contrast, there's the position of Suella Braverman and so many people in the hard right that sees Israel's right to defend itself in terms of Netanyahu's policies and will not hear a word against them. And that is equally difficult. We need to find that ground in the middle, and that ground in the middle is increasingly hard to identify for both the right and the left. I think the ground in the middle is to be found in the people who were out in force yesterday, marching in the streets of Tel Aviv and across Israel, calling on Netanyahu to resign. Well, he's got plenty of time left to continue. I don't think he's going to resign. I think this is an empty call. But I hope he recognizes the mood of the people. That mood is not anti-war. That mood is anti-Netanyahu. And the spirit in Israel is very much in favor of war. And I think that's been whipped up very much by the government in Israel, by the Knesset. And that's probably to be regretted, but it's the mixed messages which are being sent. Either the extreme capitulation to the idea, to Netanyahu's ideas, or a sloganizing which either falls dramatically into anti-Zionism or into anti-Semitism itself, and is therefore utterly rejected. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And I don't think Suella Braverman's interview and trip to Israel make that any easier.